Lysera, the queen of the Zandari people, had always been a symbol of power and fear. Her reign was built on the scars of past wars, the bloodshed that had shaped her rule. She was feared across the galaxy, not just because of her position, but because of the rumors that whispered of her terrifying beauty. Some said that no one dared approach her without trembling, and others claimed that the sight of her alone could strike terror into even the bravest of men. But behind the thick armor of her kingdom, Lysera had a secret. The queen, the ruler of an entire race, thought herself ugly. Her appearance was far from what others in her empire expected. The battle wounds that marred her face were a reminder of the wars she had fought, wars that she could never forget. Each scar was a mark of a failure she could never erase, a reminder that even the strongest of queens could be weakened by the hands of her enemies. Her once beautiful face was now covered in jagged lines, deep and dark like the ravages of time. Her skin, once smooth and radiant, was now weathered, scarred, and discolored. These imperfections in her eyes made her less than what she had once been. In the eyes of her people, she was no longer the graceful queen they had once admired. Yet the people of the Zandari Empire still looked to her as their leader, even if they did so in silence, with hesitation. They whispered behind her back, questioning her worth, doubting her strength. But Lysera could not let them see her weakness. She had to remain strong for them, for her kingdom. When the human soldiers arrived on her planet, it was not something she had expected. The Zandari had always been isolated, and the idea of a human military presence on their soil was a bitter pill to swallow. The humans were known throughout the galaxy as strong warriors, but they were also known for their arrogance, their belief that their ways were superior. Lysera had no interest in them or their so-called diplomacy. They were just another group seeking to impose their will upon her people. Still, she had been forced to meet with them. The human commander, a man named Aiden Walker, had come to discuss terms of an alliance. Lysera had been prepared for the usual insults, for the humans' likely dismissal of her people's customs. But what she had not prepared for was the man who would stand before her. Aiden Walker was not like the others. He did not tremble in fear when he entered her presence, nor did he look at her with the disdain that others had. He looked at her with something else, something that Lysera had not seen in years: respect. It unsettled her. When she first met him, she did not know how to react. He was young, younger than many of the other soldiers who had come before him. He had an easy smile, one that seemed to come naturally, and his eyes held a sense of curiosity that unsettled her even further. His armor was shiny, new, and very different from the battle-worn suits her soldiers wore. But it wasn't the suit that caught her attention. It was his eyes. "You're the queen of the Zandari people, right?" Aiden had asked, his voice calm but filled with an undeniable sense of wonder. Lysera had been taken aback. "What is it that you want, human?" she demanded, her voice cold and unyielding. She had heard the rumors about how humans dealt with those they deemed weaker, how they would try to take over, exploit, and conquer. She would not allow it here. Aiden seemed to study her for a moment, and for the first time in a long time, Lysera felt vulnerable. She tried to hide it, but she knew that her scars, the marks of her past, were visible for him to see. His gaze fell on them, but he did not flinch. Instead, he took a step closer, and for a brief moment, Lysera thought he might try to touch her face to offer some comfort. But he didn't. "I've heard stories about your beauty, your strength, your power," he said, his voice gentle yet firm. "But I also hear that you carry a burden, that your people see you as weak because of the marks you bear. That's not the whole story, though, is it?" Lysera stared at him in disbelief. He had seen through her walls already. She had always been careful to mask her weaknesses, to hide the doubts she carried deep inside. But this human soldier had seen right through her facade. She narrowed her eyes, her sharp gaze not leaving him. "I am not weak, human. I have led my people through battles, through wars. What have you done? You come here expecting to offer your assistance, but you know nothing of my struggle." Aiden's smile never wavered. "I may not know everything about you, Queen Lysera, but I do know one thing: you're not weak. The marks on your face, the scars you carry, they show that you fought for your people. That makes you stronger than any perfect ruler could ever be." Lysera's chest tightened. She had never heard anyone speak to her like this. She had heard others speak of her, yes, but it was always with fear, with admiration for her strength. Never with respect for the person she had become, scars and all. But here was a human soldier offering her something she had never expected: acceptance. "I'm not beautiful, Aiden," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "I'm ugly. Look at me. I am the embodiment of failure." Aiden stepped closer, lowering his gaze to meet hers, his eyes filled with understanding. "No, you're not ugly, you're strong. And that's something that no one can take away from you." Lysera was silent. She had never allowed anyone to see her this vulnerable, to see the depth of her insecurities. She had always been the queen, the powerful ruler. But now, with this human soldier before her, she realized that maybe, just maybe, there was more to her than her scars, more to her than the mask she had worn for so long. And for the first time in a long while, Lysera felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. As the days passed, the uneasy alliance between the human forces and the Zandari people began to take shape. Lysera found herself meeting with Aiden more and more, often in the quiet chambers of her palace. She could still hear the whispers of her people, questioning her leadership and the future of their kingdom. Yet each time Aiden spoke, his words seemed to offer a kind of reassurance, an understanding she hadn't known she needed. They were both leaders in their own right, yet so different in how they led. Lysera's rule was founded on strength, on showing no weakness. Her people respected her because they feared her, and she had built her reputation on that fear. But Aiden's leadership was different. He led with empathy, with kindness, and it was something she could never quite understand. Still, Lysera found herself drawn to him. Every conversation, every meeting with Aiden seemed to peel back a layer of the hardness she had surrounded herself with. In his presence, she felt less like a queen and more like a person. It was strange. She had spent so many years building walls around herself, protecting herself from the opinions and judgments of others. But Aiden didn't judge her. He saw her for who she was, not for the scars or imperfections that she had always believed defined her. One evening, they sat together in the palace garden, a rare moment of peace after a long day of negotiations. The stars above twinkled, casting a soft glow on the flowers and trees that surrounded them. Lysera watched as Aiden leaned back against a stone pillar, his arms crossed over his chest, his expression thoughtful. "I don't understand how you can still smile," Lysera said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Everywhere I go, I see fear in people's eyes. They look at me and see a queen who has lost everything, a queen who is no longer fit to rule. But you never look at me that way." Aiden turned to look at her, a soft smile playing at the corners of his lips. "I don't see someone who has lost everything. I see someone who has fought for everything she has. You've built your kingdom from the ground up. That takes strength. You may not see it, but I do." Lysera shook her head. "My people don't see it. They see the scars, the marks of my failures. I've led them through battle after battle, but I've never been able to protect them from the things that matter most. I've failed them." "You haven't failed them, Lysera," Aiden said gently. "You've done everything you can. The fact that they still follow you means something. It means they believe in you. They may not say it, but they see your strength even if you don't." She looked away, unsure of how to respond. The words he spoke were kind, but they felt foreign to her. She had never thought of herself as strong. To her, strength meant perfection, and she knew she was far from perfect. "I don't know how to be anything other than what I am," she admitted softly. "I've been this way for so long, built up walls to protect myself, to protect my people. But every time I see my reflection, I see failure staring back at me." Aiden's expression softened and he stood up, walking over to her. He didn't speak at first but simply stood beside her, looking up at the stars. After a few moments he spoke again. "You don't have to be perfect, Lysera. You just have to be real. People don't follow perfect rulers. They follow rulers who understand them, who fight for them, who show that they care. You've done that. You've shown them that you care, that you'll do anything to protect them. That's why they follow you." Lysera turned to look at him, his words sinking in. She had never seen her leadership through that lens before. She had always believed that power came from perfection, from strength, and from fear. But what if Aiden was right? What if true strength came from vulnerability, from showing the people that their ruler was human just like them? The thought was unsettling. It went against everything she had built her rule upon. But as she looked into Aiden's eyes, something within her shifted. She had always been the one to hide her weaknesses, to keep her true self locked away behind a mask of power. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to take that mask off. The following days brought new challenges. A rebellion had started brewing in the southern provinces, and the tension between the Zandari people and the humans was beginning to rise. Lysera knew that this was a crucial moment, one that could either solidify her reign or bring it to an end. But she found herself at a crossroads. She could no longer lead with fear. She couldn't pretend to be something she was. In the quiet of her chambers, she stood before a mirror, studying her reflection. The scars on her face seemed to stand out more in the dim light, the deep lines marking the passage of time and the weight of her battles. She had always seen them as a sign of her failure. But now, for the first time, she saw them as a part of her story, a testament to the battles she had fought and survived. She wasn't perfect, and maybe that was okay. Maybe the people needed to see her flaws, to see that even their queen had weaknesses, just like they did. It was a terrifying thought, but it was also liberating. That night, as Lysera prepared for the upcoming battle, she made a decision. She would not hide anymore. She would lead with her true self, scars and all. She would fight for her people, not because she was perfect, but because she cared for them. And maybe, just maybe, they would see her for who she truly was. The battle was fierce, the air thick with the sounds of clashing weapons and the cries of soldiers. Lysera stood at the front lines, her soldiers surrounding her, ready to fight to the death. Aiden was by her side, as always, his presence a quiet source of strength. As the enemy forces charged toward them, Lysera felt a surge of determination. She was no longer just a queen with scars. She was a queen with a purpose. She fought with everything she had, leading her people with a strength that came from within, not from fear or perfection. She fought not for glory, but for the future of her people. The battle raged on, but the tide began to turn in their favor. Lysera's forces pushed the enemy back, their determination fueled by her leadership. When the battle finally ended, the enemy had been defeated, and the Zandari people had once again emerged victorious. As the dust settled, Lysera stood amidst the aftermath, her armor dented, her face smeared with dirt and blood. But for the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace. She had led her people to victory, not because she was flawless, but because she had allowed herself to be vulnerable, to show them that she was one of them. And that, in the end, had made all the difference. Aiden approached her, his smile soft and reassuring. "You did it, Lysera," he said, his voice filled with pride. Lysera looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "No, Aiden," she said, her voice steady. "We did it together." And in that moment, she knew that she had found something far more important than strength or perfection. She had found trust, trust in herself and in the people who had stood by her side, just as they had always believed in her, flaws and all.